With Simon Calder, a travel guru at The Independent. I'm not sure where you are, Simon, but almost certainly somewhere more lavish and sort of interesting than where I am.
Nowhere is more interesting, Mike, than where you happen to be, and I know I'm speaking on behalf of all listeners and viewers when I say that. No, I'm actually in South London, which is quite a good place to be because it's not at Heathrow or Gatwick Airport.
Yes.
In particular, Gatwick, I've just been looking at the arrivals. There were so many flights cancelled at late notice yesterday. We got up to, I'm pretty guessing, I haven't done the final count yet, but last time I checked, it was 70 arrivals and departures.
Wow. So it was actually worse than the day before, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's certainly up to 80 or 90 departures. And just to translate that, that's about 15,000 people who are waking up this morning where they didn't intend to be. And that is on top of the tens of thousands of people who over the weekend, from actually Friday afternoon through to Sunday, were prevented from getting to where they needed to be because of fog. And if I can just run through exactly what happens, you've got perfectly good instrument landing systems, which have been around actually for decades, which allow planes to land. But because of how they work, you've got to slow things down on the ground. That reduces the number of movements by anything up to 50%. And if that is, extends the time that it takes by 50%, that reduces the number of movements by 1/3. And if you've got the world's busiest two-runway airport, Heathrow, and the busiest single-runway airport, Gatwick, then that is only going to end in one thing, and that is cancellations. And I spoke to lots of people yesterday who were just getting those creeping delays. They were quite often told 2 hours late, 3 hours late, 4 hours late, cancelled. As
well, my daughter was actually one of them, and she was due to fly out on the morning of yesterday, about 10:30. She got to the airport, it was delayed by an hour, then it was delayed by a couple more hours, and then she finally got on the plane, I think at around about 5 o'clock, and it taxied out onto the runway, only then to be told, we can't take off, we're going back, and so she's still there.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, lots of people. I mean, that's doubly frustrating.
Yeah.
And,
so who chooses which flights go and which don't then, if there are some going?
Yeah, well, if you are in the EasyJet operations room at Luton, you have just got this kind of impossible game of three-dimensional chess. Who's where? How are their hours looking? Because that obviously becomes very significant. Where have we got, for example, empty seats on other flights? So that, for instance, if you've got 7 flights to and from Edinburgh, and actually you could fit everybody on 5 flights, then the first thing you do is you cancel 2 of those to give you a bit of breathing space. But
so it's the individual airlines that try and do it then, is it?
Oh yes, and so what happens is that the national NATS, the Air Traffic Control Service, says sorry everyone, you've got to reduce your schedule by 10%, 15, 20, 30%, and that will always affect EasyJet at Gatwick, the biggest airline there, and British Airways at Heathrow, the biggest airline there, far more than anybody else. And I'm so sorry about your daughter. She, being on a 10:30 flight yesterday was a good place to be in general, because there was a chance you'd get away with a 2-3 hour delay.
How's it looking today? Because she's got another flight booked, I think, with a different airline, and she's getting the other one refunded, but she's supposed to be taking off at 11:30 this morning. Looks a bit less foggy to me.
Yeah, I'm just looking down at the cancellations, and they are there's a random selection of out of Gatwick on EasyJet. We've got Belfast, Aberdeen, Inverness, Milan, Venice, all cancelled. That will simply be planes and pilots being out of position. And that, there we are. If you're one of the 800, 900 people on those flights, that's extremely annoying. Plus you've got the flights going in the opposite direction, they're also cancelled. So that's tough, but it's recoverable. What we were seeing yesterday quite a lot of was people who'd been cancelled on Saturday being given new flights on Sunday, and those flights weren't going either, and it was all building up. And of course, just like before Christmas, there's lots of people who want to get where they need to be by midnight tomorrow.
Yes.
And that's looking increasingly difficult because the systems are looking so... everything is still pretty sticky. British Airways, again, a relative handful of cancellations today, but unhelpful for those people. And I think that after this, there needs to be a really serious discussion. Are we scheduling too many flights in and out of UK airports in the depths of winter? Because it was only a week earlier, remember, on Sunday the 22nd, when we had 100 cancellations at Heathrow just because it was going to be windy.
Right.
And maybe we reduce the number of flights so to a level where you're not going to see these last-minute cancellations. Or we have conversations about, well, why have we got 15, 20, 30 flights between London and Edinburgh? Shouldn't we be putting people on the train, and that way it will free up a bit of space? Lots of questions to ask of the new Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, and I'm looking forward to you talking to her and indeed talking to her myself about...
well, I'd like to say I am going to talk to her, but she's not coming on this morning. But funnily enough, I don't know if you can find her, but I guess we can try and get her sometime later in the week when it's all calmed down a bit. But it hasn't calmed down, because it won't calm down, is it? We've got more bad weather coming in, which no doubt will affect not only the airports, but also the roads and the railways. And then, of course, we've got those nice people from Avanti going on strike tomorrow. Yes,
let's do a sort of countdown to the end of the year. You're quite right. The weather is looking horrible. We already have speed restrictions in place across Scotland, so that means journeys taking longer, obviously, but also some cancellations because you don't have the trains and the crews available. Roads looking pretty horrible the further north that you get. I think last time I checked, there were 3 or 4 Met Office warnings about heavy rain, snow, and how that is going to...
Well, it's called winter, isn't it? I mean, shouldn't we be better at this?
Well, I mean, it does... most definitely we should do, or we just decide, well, we're not going to go anywhere. But on the railways, so it was an absolutely horrible day yesterday.
Yeah.
Particularly for people in northwest England. We had, I think, 9 lines run by Northern where there were simply no trains because they didn't have the staff.
Well, we've got no staff at all. You wouldn't find anyone. No, sorry, do you run a train company? Yeah. Have you got anyone that can drive a train? No.
Well, no, this is the conductors on the west side of the Pennines. They don't have to work on Sundays, and as increasingly they've shown, they really don't want to work on a Sunday, and why should they? Those are the rules. That's what they agreed to, and you would.
Well, I mean, that's another conversation as to why should they. I mean, if I was running the railway, they'd be working every day I asked them to work, frankly.
Well, we are all looking forward to the day when you are running the railways, and indeed the rest of the country, Mike, and things will be vastly improved.
Well, this idea that suddenly now they don't want to work Sundays is nonsensical, because they do. They just want more money for it, really, don't they?
Well, that takes us on to the strike.
Yeah.
So tomorrow we get the first of 5 months of strikes by Avanti West Coast train managers, and their issue is that if they work on a day off during the week, they're being offered £250. If it's a weekend, they get £300, and they say that's not enough. And in order to press their point, they are going on strike tomorrow on the 2nd of January, so that's Thursday, then every Sunday from the 12th of January to the 25th of May. And they want more like what the senior managers who sometimes act as train managers get, and they particularly want more like what their colleagues who are at the front driving the train get, which is thanks to an agreement actually made during the Conservative government, they get a flat £600 for working on their day off.
Unbelievable.
And the train managers want some of that. And Heidi Alexander, Transport Secretary, did say, we want Avanti to get round the table with the RMT union, very much making it sound as though it was down to the
well, the seats
train
are still,
companies.
to be fair, the seats are still warm around the table because they're only just giving them a load of money last time around.
Yes.
You know.
Well, that was this is a sort of separate issue, but very much implying that it's the train operator at fault.
Yeah.
Labour is still very much saying, these private train companies, that's where all the problems lie. Well, not if you're a northern passenger, because they've been in public ownership for, I think, 4 years now.
Right.
But saying, well, you've got to, obviously, you've just got to give them more money. But at a time when the taxpayer, that's you actually, Mike, is paying £400 per second to keep the railways running, and I think we perhaps all agree that the railways aren't in the best shape.
No, I think it'd be cheaper if I just bought my own train, wouldn't it?
Yes, saying here's some more money, and let's hope things get better is one thing. But of course, the implication of this is, well, obviously you can't trust any trains because they're so unreliable, because if there isn't an infrastructure failure, then they're probably on strike, at which point all the people you need to attract back to the railways and all the new customers are saying, well, I'm not going anywhere near a train. I've heard how terrible they are.
I know. Absolute nightmare. Well, listen, I would say Happy New Year, but it's more in hope than expectation, really. But hopefully you're not having to go anywhere, Simon, and you can just hunker down and enjoy the last of the mince pies, and hopefully next week things might be a bit better.
Things can only get better. That'd be a good political slogan, wouldn't it?
It would be. But